Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of this tutorial. In the first video, I showed how we can program a relatively simple cognitive science experiment with a mixed design and an instruction test that subjects must pass in order to proceed. And now in this video, I want to show how we can make it an actual online experiment, because what we've done in the first video was create something that runs in a browser, but it was not really online, right? And there were no data files that were stored anywhere. So how can we turn it into a real online experiment? And in this video, I'm going to introduce or to talk about cognition.run, which is one way to do it. And this is also, I should say, not the first tutorial that is covering that topic. I will link the other video. But to make this a whole thing, I felt like I should also talk about how to make a jsPsych experiment and an online experiment that subjects can find, and that saves data to a server and stuff like that. And I was myself watching this other tutorial video about cognition.run, and then I tried it out, and I must say that it's a very nice solution, because you don't have to deal with setting up a server yourself and all that kinds of things that are not super easy, maybe. Yeah, all right. Okay, yeah, as I said, what we have so far is an HTML file that contains the code of our experiment. We can double click, it opens in the browser, and then our experiment starts. We can run it in the browser. It looks as if it is online, but it actually isn't. So how can we make this an actual online experiment? As I said, let's check out cognition.run. All right, this is the cognition.run website where you can create an account, which is free. And I already have an account, so I can go to my task directly. So once you have an account and you log in, you will get to this this screen here, which gives you an overview of your tasks. So now we somehow want to import the experiment that we programmed, and that is so far sitting in this folder here behind this HTML file that we created. We somehow want to bring it to cognition.run here in this task environment. So I'm going to create a new task. Then I give it a name, demo experiment. I save, and now I'm already in the overview of this demo experiment that I just created. And as you can see, a link has been created that is associated with this particular experiment that we just set up. So now we could click on this link, and then it would lead us here. But obviously we haven't done anything with our experiment that is still sitting in this folder on our hard drive, right? So now comes a very nice thing about cognition.run. You can, in this part here, click on source code. And now what actually happens is you get to an online editor, which is actually a jsPsych editor. So it has all the jsPsych plugins. You can select the version of jsPsych that you want to use. And then here you can, for example, upload your stimuli, which is what I'm going to do now. You can click there. And then select the files that you want to upload. So I navigate to our experiment folder here, where we have the img folder with all the images, and then I'm just going to upload them. right? Here they are. So far, so good. And now I disable this preview here so that we see the whole editor. Now I go back and open my offline experiment that is sitting on my hard drive in the editor again. And I'm just going to copy and paste the code into the online editor. But now we don't need all the header here. We don't need to tell the online editor on cognition.run that we need certain plugins. This has already been taken care of. You just say which library version you want to use, and then it's all good. So all we need is actually all the stuff within or inside of this code frame here. We also don't need this last part here. We don't need the online editor to tell that the script is finished and stuff like that. We just need this inner part here. All right, I'm going to copy it, and now I'm just going to paste it. And now we can enable the preview again and see what happens. And what happens is we see our experiment in this preview. So this seems to be working. We have uploaded the code to this server here, to this online editor, and in the preview, we see what we should see. And what we also see is in this panel down here, we see a data frame with all the recorded data that are being created in the background. And this list or this data frame gets updated now while I click myself through the experiment. As you can see, there are new lines added. Now let's enter our confirmations and click continue. And if you remember in the code, we said that like upon clicking this continue button, the responses should be saved as new columns to the data frame. And as you can see, there are actually 2 new columns in this data frame that store our response. Okay, this is the instruction. Now, remember, there should also come, when we go to the instruction test, a new column that counts the rounds of instruction tests. Yeah, and as you can see, there was just a new column popping up, and it says, this is the first round of instruction tests. Now let's do this wrong. Okay, yeah, I should go back to the instructions, continue, and now this gets updated, right? Now we have 2 rounds of instruction tests. This seems to be working just fine, so let's do it right now. Okay, and we proceed to the main phase, and now let's see if the response here gets recorded. So I answer the test question, I press continue, and as you can see, there is a new column that saves the response that we gave on this screen. I press continue, and now I see the second screen of the test phase, and I give a response, maybe something else. And all right, and as we see now, there hasn't been a new column. There hasn't been created a new column with the response of the second screen. So this might mean that there's a problem in the code actually. And that I forgot something in the first video. Let's see. We were in the low sample size condition. And this happened with the second test screen, which was the high contingency data frame. And I can already see the problem we gave the same name for the second test screen here, right? It has the question has the same name as for this test case here. So this should have been 0.75 actually. Okay, as you can see here, we were writing the correct thing to the data, but this question with such a name here, N32075, didn't exist because it was N32025. So now I corrected this. Now let's re-enable the preview. Let's see if it works now. This was condition 1 that I tested. Let's do it again. Okay, now we already see the high contingency data set. Let's see. Oh, there was a new column created. Okay, now we have a rating 0.75. This looks good. Now there should be a second column coming. Okay, now it works. And all the other columns are also being added correctly. This looks good. Okay, so far so good. So now this seems to be working as intended. I disable the preview. Now we probably don't want to have this as a demo version because at some point we want to launch it and have real participants go through the experiment, right? So now I'm going to disable or outcomment these first elements of the timeline where we select a condition and get the feedback which condition we selected. So now I enable the preview again, see if the right stuff is shown. Okay, this should be the first screen of the real experiment. So now this seems to be fine. And then there's one other thing. In the first video, I briefly talked about this line here in our code where we have this condition, condition written in capital letters. And this is a cognition.run specific thing. So there is a variable created by cognition.run that has the name condition in capital letters. And now I created this internal condition variable here, small letters. So now what I want to do is I want to say that condition is condition in capital letters. Why? Because somehow it must be decided which subject goes to which condition, right? And this is handled by cognition.run by this global variable here. That is not created in this. It's not created in our code here. It's a variable that belongs to this task here. So I can go back to the task overview. Well, let's first check if everything is still working. Yes, it's still fine. I didn't destroy anything. So let's go back to the overview of this task. And then we can go to configuration. And here we go to advanced configuration. And here we see the inter-experiment conditions. So this is what this condition variable with capital letters is. Okay, now we have to decide, or we have to know how many between subject conditions we have, right? And we have four. We have sample size, small and large, and then we have counterbalancing factor that codes the orientation of the rating scale. So I'm just going to type 4 here and save. All right, and then it's done. Go back to the source code. I enable preview, and now we'll be in one of the 4 conditions. And here there's also the set condition option, which we can click, and then we can select a condition. So I can now select 4, and the screen refreshes instantly in an instant, and then I can check if I'm actually in condition 4. It's also saved in the data frame, so it seems to be working. Let's check. I'm expecting to see many mice, which I do, so this seems fine. Okay, this seems to be working. Now, there are probably a handful of other options or things that we want to do before we make this online. For example, there's this informed consent option here. So that means you can actually type the informed consent information here. And you don't have to have this as an additional screen in your experiment. It's handled by Prolific and we'll test informed consent. Let's just check out and see what it looks like. I save. It must at least be 50 characters, all right. And now let's just see what our study looks like to a participant. We can just click on that link, and then the experiment opens, and we first see the informed consent. we can accept it, and then we continue and we start the study. Yeah, this is how it works. Okay, and then, okay, let's maybe go through one more run in that study. Oop. I mean, now I'm always led back to prolific, but the link or the study is not actually active in prolific. It's just an old completion link that was still in there. Now, as you can see here in this data collection window, we have actually our first data set. And now we can either download the data as a CSV file, or we can also click on this run here within the cognition.run environment, and we see the data frame that has been created. And that way we can already check while the experiment is still running and without downloading anything, if data saving works fine. And this looks good. Okay, now I want to quickly show another nice option. So we go back to the source code. There's actually a simulation mode in jsPsych. So instead of run the timeline, we can run a demo mode. Let me just quickly check out what it was that we have to type. Yeah, I think it's called simulation mode. Yeah, simulation modes. Yeah, okay. So there are two options actually to simulate your experiment. You can have data only. So you click on the link and then you click, I will just show you what that looks like. So we go back to the source code, we outcomment the regular command and we insert this simulation command and we simulate the timeline. Now I go back to the task overview and I open the link in a new browser. I press accept and continue, and then the experiment is done. And we see that we have a second run here, and we can quickly check if the data has been properly recorded. So that's quite nice. And then let's try out the visual option, but I guess you can already imagine what we will see. And this is also quite nice. Let's use this simulation mode. Go back to the demo experiment. We click on the link, and then we click accept and continue, and then we can just lay back and let it all be. Now you can see I'm doing nothing, and it's going through the experiment and selecting responses. Now it's typing in some text. Same here. All right, and then the study is done. And we have another run in our simulation here. So this is really nice to check if everything works as you want it to work. And then at some point, once you have really run your experiment, you want to download the data, you click on download data, and then you can choose between downloading all runs, finished runs, just non-finished runs. I usually download the finished runs as a CSV file, and then I select zip folder, and then you can even select if the file names should include some of the variables of the data frame. I usually here record the prolific ID so that but I mean, that's up to you. You can also select condition. That's maybe not the wisest option. I don't know. All right. Yeah, this is how it works. So this is a really nice way of running your experiment online. You don't have to deal with setting up a server yourself and all that kind of thing. I think cognition.run is a great way of implementing your jsPsych experiments. So far, I can highly recommend it. Yeah, so maybe I should say that there are some limitations if you use the free version. If you use the free plan, then you can only have 4 active tasks at a time. You can only collect 80 runs per task, but obviously you can download the data after 80 runs and then you can continue, right? So this has been working just fine for me so far. I think it's a great deal. All right, yeah. I hope this was helpful, and good luck with your experiments. Bye.